Hey everybody, today we are talking about the Tatami Galaxy and its anime adaptation. So previously I have reviewed the Tatami Galaxy novel, and so this is mostly going to be comparing the anime to the novel version and just some thoughts about the anime. So this anime was made, I think, 2010, 2011, and it has 11 episodes, and it really follows the novel quite well. In the novel, we have 4 parts, and in each one of those parts, it is like a different version of our main character's life. Had he chosen certain things differently, how would his life have been? So we basically have like 4 versions of that. In the anime, we get 11 episodes, and so we get the versions of his life that are in the book, but we also get like bonus content. Basically, we get some additional, like, what if he joined this club, or what if he did this part that was just briefly mentioned in one of the sections of the book. What if he did that for a full episode or a whole lifetime, like, a lifetime journey. So we have a couple of additional ones. So it's not that they took any of the material from the novel and changed it. They did those things, but then they also just added to it and amplified some of those elements that were only briefly touched on in the book. So it's just like an expanded version of the book, which is great. We get more of what we had. And for 3 of the episodes, it's actually centered around one of the sections of the book. I think it's like part 3 of the book, where he is dealing with 3 different women and like trying to decide if he has a potential future with either of these women. And so in the way the anime does this is they have 3 separate episodes for what if he chose her, what if he chose her, what if he chose her. And so that is probably the longest sticking to like one kind of story section for the anime. But most of them are just like 1 episode. And the way that the episodes always end is our main character saying, if only I had chosen something else, maybe my fate would have been different. Maybe things would have gone better. And then it shows like a clock tower type thing, and it goes in reverse, and then it like reverses the whole episode, and then we get the end credits. And I always thought that was a really nice touch to have consistency of doing that like every time at the end. And the opening credits and the end credits are both really good. Like, I didn't even want to skip them while I was watching. I just loved the song. I loved what we were seeing on the screen. The opening scene is basically us zoom walking, fast-paced walking through a bunch of different versions of his bedroom, which is his 4.5 tatami mat bedroom. And that comes into play in the final episode, where it is based on the last part of the book of him being trapped in his room, and every time he tries to escape, he goes into another version of his room had he chosen a different path. So it's basically like he's stuck in hundreds of thousands of versions of his own life, different timelines of his life, and what it would have been if he had made certain decisions. We'll get back to that episode in a second, because I want to say more about how I like what they did there. But the anime style is very different than like what the most popular kind of anime style is now, where there's lots of like bright colors, fast-paced things, like lots of like lines and expressions of the face, like big eyes, and like lots of like shouting and screaming and like dramatic expressions and dramatic reactions to every little thing. I feel like that's what a lot of like anime is now. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, for all I know, that's what all anime was like, but because I haven't watched a whole lot of it, but looking more into this anime, it's kind of like has like a cult following, where it's like people think this is how anime should be, and that it's actually like the better version of anime. The style is just very different. There's some parts that are similar, but the coloring of this one, the use of like real life objects mixed with animation, I found really interesting. That would have bothered me a long time ago. I used to not really like that. I used to only want it to stick to one thing. But what I mean by that more specifically is that, like, sometimes we would have scenes of them doing something outdoors, and then it would show water trickling in, like, the river, but it would look like realistic water, not animated water. But there'd be, like, kind of like a filter put over it, so it would be kind of like a blend of animation and real life, but more so on, like, looking like it was, like, real, but just with, like, a fancy filter on it. That's the best way I can describe it. I'll put a little visual in here for you so you can see what I mean by that. And, like, there are times where, like, there might be, like, a coffee maker or something that looks like it's real, but again, there's, like, that mask over it that kind of makes it not look exactly real. But I haven't really seen a lot of animes where it mixes those kinds of things. That was, like, stuck out a lot. So the way that it's structured, like, every single beginning of the episodes start the same, where he's, like, walking down this really colorful pathway towards his rosy colored campus life, and to figure out what club he wants to join. So it basically starts the same way, just like in the book. All the sections basically start the exact same way, the same wording and everything. And then we experience his life, and then it reverses back, and then we start anew. What's really cool is the way they did the last episode, though. The last episode is structured a little differently in terms of, like, the end credits and the beginning credits, and the coloring and the I just think it's really cool that I don't even want to tell you about how. Just go watch. Even if you don't know if you want to invest the whole, like, 11 seasons. It's only, like, 23 minutes long for each episode, and there's only 11, so really it would be worth just watching the whole thing, and it would mean more and symbolize better if you did this. But if you wanted to just jump to the 11th episode and see what I'm talking about, you'd have to watch the first one at least, and then the last one for it to make sense. But just the way that they do that is really cool with the credits. Where I actually found this, it was really hard for me to find this. I thought it was on Crunchyroll, and then it wasn't available in my country, so then I had to try to find it somewhere else, and then I ended up finding it on someone had it on YouTube. You have to put on the subtitles for what language you want, and then it's just like the auto ones from YouTube, but they actually are good. Like, they make sense and they work for the most part. There's a couple times where it says he when it's supposed to say she, so, like, sometimes the translation, it mixes up things like that, but, like, you can fill in the blanks. So that's how I ended up watching it, and you can go and experience the whole thing for yourself. I did just want to talk about the last episode a little bit before I end the video, because I really loved how they portrayed, like, the mood and everything by their use of colors in this episode. At the very beginning, this is the one where it's like the end of the book where he's stuck in his tatami room, and at the very beginning it's like black and white, but the whole room, instead of it being drawn, it looks like realistic. Like, all the clothes hanging up and stuff look like actual realistic clothing, but the coloring is just very, like, bland, which is kind of like how his life was in this episode. He didn't join a club, or maybe he did and then he just quit, and he just decided to just go home after his classes and just stay in his room all the time. So basically nothing is happening. The relationships that he could have had are, like, barely there. He's met Ozu. Ozu is a consistent in every single one of these things. He always is going to meet Ozu. He's always going to meet the other characters too, but just more so in some scenarios than others. But Ozu is, like, a constant pretty much. So he still knows Ozu in this one too, but he's told himself that he's just gonna stay in his room and just, like, vegetate for the rest of his free time, basically. So he, like, does nothing. And so the coloring kind of reflects that. It's just very bland and plain, and nothing's going on in his life. And then when he realizes he actually wants to leave, that's when he realizes that he can't, because it's just another room that looks like his. And over time he starts to realize, the more times he decides to go into a different room, he starts to notice little things that are different. And each time that he finds a different version of his life, there's just a little bit more color. So sometimes, like, some yellow will come in, or sometimes some pink will come in, and the more and more he goes through, he realizes all the things that he's missing out by not doing anything with his life, and all the lives that he could have had, or that he does have in different universes and different timelines. And so like the more and more color starts coming back, and he realizes he needs to make a change and just actually do something. If he wants a good life, a rosy colored campus life, he has to do something about it. And so he finally starts to, when he makes that realization, he starts to do that. And the color starts returning to his rooms and to his life, until he can finally get out of this cycle, and then he's in the world, and there's bright lights and colors and all these different things. And so I thought that was really good, how they did that last episode. I thought it was really good. But yeah, overall, like I said, I think it's worth watching all 11 episodes. It was really fun to watch, and just having read the book beforehand, I just had extra context of like, oh, I wonder when I'm gonna see this from the book, or when I'm gonna see that. And like I said, it was quite true to the words of the book, and so I think it was really well done. It did get some like awards as well, so it and like the ratings are very high for like every episode. So if it sounds interesting to you, then you should definitely watch it. And if you've already watched it, because like it is like what, 15 years old or something at this point, so for all I know, you have seen it already. And I'm just catching up. Thank you so much for watching my thoughts about this anime, and I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.